We all make mistakes. That is the truth. But of course one has to be very careful not to make the kind of mistake you cannot come back from. Okay? Governments also make mistakes. But a government has to be super careful. And especially its leader, the president, has to be super careful not to make mistakes that they cannot come back from. Because when that happens, you know what it means. It means that they're going home. And sometimes it may mean that they're going home even before it is home time. If I can remember my school days, long time ago. On my show today, I will focus on 5 little known but fatal errors that the Ruto regime has made that they can never come back from. Okay? Just 5. And number 5, I have not seen anybody pointing out this one. But the truth is that it has been a disaster. 99.9% of the suffering in Kenya today is because of this number 5. But of course we will start with number 1. Let us get started immediately. Fatal mistake number 1 that the Ruto administration will never be able to come back from is underestimating Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Now don't take this one lightly. It has had far-reaching effects and consequences. Let me explain briefly. It is very clear that Ruto's attitude towards Uhuru has been one of, if I can use a Kenyan expression, one of madharau tupu. Tena madharau nyingi sana. I'm sure you remember, at the height of the UDA campaigns before the 2022 general elections, Ruto was quoted as saying, "Mimi sikunywi pombe, mimi sivuti bangi." I'm sure you remember that. And everybody knew he was referring to the 4th president of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. You will also remember a viral video of a speech Ruto was giving, explaining how he went to see Uhuru shortly after his election victory as president in 2017 had been nullified. And according to Ruto, he found Uhuru drunk but very crestfallen. And Uhuru was suggesting that they should just give up and hand over power to Raila Odinga and the opposition. And according to that viral video, the only reason Ruto did not slap Uhuru was that he feared his security personnel. And when he reached this part of the story, there was loud laughter in the room, especially from President Uhuru Kenyatta's cousin, who has always been a firm supporter of Ruto. You know, when I was in high school, there was this guy who was a smoker in high school. He was also a member of the Herbalist Association Club. Yeah, those are the guys who used to partake of the herb. They used to smoke bangi. That's what we used to call them. We refer to them as the herbalists. And the same character used to sneak out regularly to go and buy alcohol, changa in those days, or muratina, just across the fence of the school. And he was doing all this while the rest of us were very busy studying, reading, preparing for exams, preparing for a test. But when that test or exam came, guess who was top of the class? This member of the herbalist. Oh yes, He was brilliant. Today I will confess for the first time, that guy insulted me. That guy insulted me with his behavior. No, he didn't insult me verbally. I felt insulted because he hardly touched a book, but I never ever beat him even once. Alininyorosha kwa kila test, hata mpaka final exams, effortlessly. Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a man casually. During the Civil War in America, President Abraham Lincoln's most effective military strategist was an alcoholic. But the guy was a genius in military strategy. The lesson in this life, never underestimate anybody. Wachana na madharau. Don't ever dharau anybody in your life. It could prove tragic. It could easily end up being a mistake that you will never come back from. William Ruto bounced into office knowing that he will definitely do better than Uhuru. Knowing that he will definitely do better than Mlevi. But after only a handful of weeks on the job, alijua alikuwa ajui. Oh yes. The result is that our country today is in a mess. Indeed, Martha Karua, who has been in government, she definitely knows more than I do, has told Kenyans many times that the hole which Ruto has put the country into will take us a very long time to get out of. In other words, even if Ruto leaves power today, we are still in big trouble, which will take a lot of work and many years to get out of. That's according to Martha Karua. And the way former President Uhuru Kenyatta has hounded UDA and Ruto out of the Mount Kenya region is pure magic, in my opinion. Uhuru has not been actively campaigning. He has not been on the rooftop of his car in every village in Central Province and the Mount Kenya region. In fact, he has had very few public appearances in the Mount Kenya region. Very few. So how did he do it? Whatever the man does in his free time, the man has brains. The man has political skills. As some of us have found out, when it is too late. Na mambo bado. Tena bado sana. Because today as we speak, Uhuru Kenyatta is one of the most popular Kenyans on our shores. That is the truth. His political opponent? Well, he has said it is not time to be popular. And I'm still looking for a political textbook somewhere that says that a politician is allowed to be unpopular and then get popular shortly before the elections. And that works. I'm still looking for somewhere where I can get that information. Please help me in my desperate search. Fatal error number 2. Assuming that the intelligence service can solve all problems. It is now clear that during the 2022 presidential elections, especially when Chebukati was doing his cooking at Bomas, cooking of the election results, it became obvious that Ruto had his people deep inside our intelligence service. This was a key component in his plan to win the presidential elections with much less votes than the winner, the real winner. And so it is easy to understand why somebody would assume, since it worked at a very critical moment, it will always work in my favor. You know, this is the same mistake the second president of the Republic of Kenya, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, made. in the 80s and 90s. His intelligence boys came up with a plan of ensuring that nobody would ever dream of opposing Moi by creating a fictional thing called Mwakenya. Oh yes, in case you didn't know, Mwakenya was pure fiction. The intelligence community planted things amongst a few disgruntled people and amongst critics of the government, especially in institutions of higher learning. In other words, framed these poor Kenyans for being members of a fictional thing that did not exist, and then crushed that fictional Mwakenya ruthlessly and created so much fear in the country, so much so that Kenyans understood that there are better ways of committing suicide than being seen as opposing Moi. And in fact, I was one of the victims. And in those days, I was just starting out in my journalism career, and I had never written a single political word. And I had never written a single political article in my life. But I was still a victim. Only because I was a freelance writer for somebody who was a Mwakenya suspect. That's the only reason. And the intelligence boys caught up with me. And I was a guest of the state for 4 horrifying days I will never forget. Now, during one of those days, at a police station, because they were moving me from one police station to another, so that I'm not visited by any relatives, or my senior cop dad, I believe it was Kamkunji police cells, I realized that I was a celeb. Cops were coming from all over town just to see me. Huyu ni yule kijana anapigana na Moi. Na huyu ni ndume, huyu ni mwanaume wa wanaume. Meanwhile, I am there, a terrified young kid. But they did not see that. They saw a dissident, a very brave young man, who was not scared of dying. But even after that move by the intelligence community and other very smart moves, did Moi and Kanu go home? Oh yes, they did. In fact, in my opinion, those activities of the intelligence community at the time speeded up Moi's exit from power. Oh yes. Bottom line, the intelligence community in Kenya cannot keep a leader who is unpopular in power. No. And history has proved that again and again and again, not only in Kenya, even in other countries. Fatal mistake number 3, which the Ruto regime can never recover from, is overestimating the power of propaganda. You know, propaganda, if one is not careful, can easily be like madawa ya kulevya. Yeah? You can get high on it and start assuming that it is still working to fool the public, even when it has long stopped working. The latest narrative that I saw in headlines in newspapers today was the very interesting title, "Are Ruto's hard choices finally beginning to pay off and the economy recovering?" What? I'm laughing because anybody who understands what's going on in Kenya right now will have the same reaction to any suggestion that the economy is recovering. That, my friends, is a mirage. It is an illusion. And as we all know, madawa ya kulevya, they give you an illusion. They show you things which are not there. And this is precisely what is happening with the propaganda, which is still littering our media all over the place. There is too much propaganda in Kenya. And there is no way you can run a government on propaganda. And it is interesting to take note of the fact that that narrative is pegged on the mysterious strengthening of the Kenyan shilling. Yeah. Which, to put it simply, yeah, it is just stage managed. And you know, with things which have been stage managed, if something small goes wrong, the Kenya shilling will fall like a stone. In any case, stage managed things are not sustainable. No, they've never been. And of course, the other thing that narrative is pegged on is the falling prices of fuel. Although they have still not reached where the fourth president, Uhuru Kenyatta, left them. Those prices have still not reached there. But they're going down, which is good. But not good enough to support a narrative that the economy is improving. Where? How? Fatal mistake number 4 is ignoring the cost of living. Those of us who are around and grown-ups when Mwai Kibaki came into power will remember that what happened immediately is that the cost of living went down. For example, I vividly remember a campaign by the Coca-Cola company where they reduced their prices to only 15 shillings for a 300 ml bottle of Coca-Cola. And the headline on the posters was, "Hope is in the air." But there's something else that Kibaki did that dramatically brought the cost of living down. Free primary school education. Yani after that weekend, when Kibaki was sworn in, the following Monday, kids reported to school. Millions of them for free primary school education. Primary schools were swamped with kids who had been at home. Some of them for lack of fees. I am telling you, out of all the achievements of Kibaki, this one impacted Kenyans the most. Up to this very day, there are people today who would never have been what they are had it not been for that move by Kibaki. But staying on point, it dramatically brought the cost of living down. Well, with Ruto, it was not important. Ruto told us his government would focus on production. What? And by doing that, finally, one day in the future, prices would come down. And of course, it was a disaster, that strategy. Indeed, the government today has changed tact. But I believe we can all agree that is a blunder that this administration can never come back from. Because when you touch people's pockets, they tend not to forget quickly. Oh yes. That is basics, nursery school politics. Anywhere in the world you care to think of. And indeed, this error was as a result of error number 5, which I know you've all been waiting for. So let's go for it. Number 5, the mistake was being seduced by theoretical economics. Now, there is a huge difference between theory and vitu kwa ground, or the practical aspect of anything. That is why your favorite lecturer for your MBA degree does not own a string of businesses, is not a successful business entrepreneur, simply because they deal with theories. And you're supposed to learn these theories and then go to the ground and not only implement them, but adjust them according to the situation. Theory and reality are very different things. And this is what the Ruto administration never understood. Economist David D., who is the chief presidential economic advisor, really impressed us on social media before 2022. With his grand theories, we all greatly admired him. Huyu mtu amesoma. He knows what he's talking about. However, His theoretical policies have fallen flat on their face against the reality that is Kenya today. Now, please allow me to shock you. In America, there was a president who was a cripple, paralyzed from the waist down, and he came into office in 1933 at the height of the Great Depression. His name was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now, President Roosevelt was a very smart guy, and he had no illusions about what the situation was in his country as he came into office. There were over 13 million jobless Americans, and almost all banks had closed. Oh yes, you heard me right. Almost all banks had closed. And he hired some very smart people. Not one person, a group of people. Now, we all know, even those of us who are not economists, that printing money is bad. Printing money messes up an economy. So prepare to get shocked. The way Roosevelt revived the American economy was by printing a lot of money. This is the president who abandoned the gold standard. What that simply means is a situation where you only print money backed by gold that you hold in your reserves. And of course, there was no way you would have been able to print money without abandoning the gold reserve. And it worked. The American economy recovered from the Great Depression. Now, of course, it is important to note that what Roosevelt did was just to postpone the problem. Because today, economies are suffering because the world abandoned the gold standard. Anyway, here we are talking politics. That president knew that he had a very short time to work some magic and get the economy to recover. Otherwise, he would go home in 4 short years. And so, angefanya nini? As damaging as it proved to be to future generations, what would he have done? You know, power is very sweet. And once you have gotten that power, even if somebody comes and tells you to sell your mother, most people will do so without thinking twice. That is human nature for you, unfortunately. But my intention here was to prove to you that theory and practical are two very different things. And therefore the Ruto administration fell for Cinderella theories. And we are paying a very high price for that to this day. Now, there are only 24 hours left before my amazing offer ends on my highly sensitive special report on the 6 men and 1 woman who will decide the destiny of Kenya and the things they are currently doing clandestinely, chini ya maji, to ensure that at the end of the chaos they come out on top. It is a highly sensitive, very interesting, fascinating special report, and it can be in your inbox in a flash for only Kenya shillings 3,999 or $31. And not only that, you will be able to get 2 previous highly sensitive special reports completely for free, and one of them is on Ruto. The Ruto Kenyans do not know and will probably never know. Those who don't take in this special report, there are a lot of things there, a lot of details never seen anywhere else before that will be of great interest. Well, time is running out. Please take advantage of this offer immediately before time runs out on you. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.